isn't finished yet, and certainly his work at Bungalow isn't finished. Go to the next one. Okay, so Bungalow is in Gabon. Gabon is right where the equator crosses Africa on the west side. And Bungalow is near the town of Lubamba, which is down near the border of the Republic of Congo. So it's down way in the southern part of the country, in the southern part. So that gives you a little bit of an idea on that map. Go ahead. And the story begins way back in the 1800s when A.B. Simpson, the founder of the Alliance, first sent the very first missionaries. They went just 300 miles south of where we are. And the beginning of the story didn't start so well. So of the first 5 missionaries to go just a bit south of where Bungalow is, the 1 died, 3 came back, and only 1 stayed. So some people, when the story isn't looking so good, like to flip ahead in the story. And flipping ahead, there are now National Alliance churches in 9 different countries in Africa with more than 1 million members. So the story gets a lot better. But going back, the first missionaries that came to right where Bungalow is are John and Dorothy Fairley, who came in the 1930s. Go ahead. And so they started a dispensary. So they used their own first aid supplies, like their box of first aid box, to help treat people's medical problems and wrap people's ulcers and things. And that's what it looked like back in the 1940s. And so the land where the hospital is was that clearing, and there were some buildings back there in the 1940s and 50s. Go ahead. And in general, the country now looks in many ways like it did when the Fairleys were there. It's the tropical rainforest, and when you fly over it, it looks like a lot of broccoli. Go ahead. And so this is a bridge, and some really big trucks go across that bridge. And those are some elephants that I took a picture of just right alongside the road back in January. Go ahead. But the hospital is a whole lot different because the story has continued. And so if you look at this picture, so there's a big building that's on your left, and so that's the Bungalow Alliance Church that actually the Fairleys started building back in like the 40s and 50s. And there's an L-shaped building that's the Sunday school building, and the big building that's down towards the bottom of the picture is the eye clinic. And there's a U-shaped building that's pediatrics, and a building with a green roof that is the emergency department. And there's some buildings next to that are outpatient, and the HIV building. And the buildings to the right are surgery, and the buildings that are farthest to the top are the COVID unit. So in general, what you see is that there's a whole bunch of buildings, and it's kind of spread out. So it's not like one big 10-story building like a hospital in America generally looks like. And so it's exciting, and there's lots of different things going on. Okay, go ahead. And so these are some of the cast of characters of our story. And so this was the team that was there back at Christmas time. And the team is growing by leaps and bounds. So some of the people that are over on the right hand of the picture are Wayne and Suzanne Sprunk. And Wayne and Suzanne are also from the Northeastern District. They're from Plattsburgh. Wayne is an internal medicine doctor. And the Ingrassia family, they arrived the day that I was leaving to come on home assignment. They're from Syracuse, New York. I'm from Victor, New York. And so we have a good representation of the Northeastern District of the Alliance at Bungalow. And then, so kind of standing back behind the couch, the 3 ladies are some of the nursing faculty, and along with Chelsea. And then the two guys that are standing, two of the guys that are standing back there are Kaylin and Christopher, and Kaylin is the guy that keeps the water and the electricity running. And so that's really important because we can't run a hospital without water and electricity. And Christopher is our information technology guy. And also, like, we can't run a hospital without some of the information technology and the computers and the communication. And so I point out some of these other folks because the nursing school and those ladies are so important for what we do at the hospital and training nurses and the water and electricity. And so you may think that everybody is doctors and nurses, but the hospital doesn't run without some of the other people that are there on the team. And so there's 2 families of 5 who aren't in this picture, and we have about 17 kids. So it's a big team now. So another thing that's really interesting about our cast of characters is that normally before COVID, we have about 75 to 100 visitors a year. And so visitors come to help with things like information technology and construction and teaching at the hospital and all kinds of things. And then another part of our cast of characters is the people who work at the hospital. So the nurses and the cleaning people, and so there's about 100 people who work at the hospital. So that's some of the cast of characters. Go ahead. So this is too little for you to read probably, but this is some information about the hospital. So usually before COVID, we see about 30 to 40,000 outpatients a year. And those people get to hear the good news before their visit. And usually it's not just them. Those people come with, each patient usually comes with a family member to accompany them. And so probably it's twice that many people who get to hear the good news every year, which is really exciting to me. And so also usually each year before COVID, about 1,000 people decide to follow Jesus. And that's super exciting to me too. So other things about the hospital. We do about 2/3 of the cataract surgery for the country. And so that means that people will come and they were blind and some of them just leave their canes behind because they don't need them anymore. We do about 1,600 surgeries a year. And so it could be for like things like trauma, that the people couldn't walk when they came in. And we do a lot of maternity care. So we, for quite a while, we were doing all these C-sections for our province and the next province over. Go ahead. And so it makes me think of this verse that when John the Baptist was in prison, he sent some of his friends to go talk to Jesus and ask him, "Are you the Messiah, or should we still be waiting for somebody else?" And what John told John the Baptist's friends was, "Go back and report to John what you've seen and heard. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor." And so that's the kind of stuff that we get to see. The good news is proclaimed. People get their sight back. People can walk that couldn't walk before. And so I see people like all the time that I can't explain how they were healed, and God did it. And so that's the kind of thing that I want to tell you about, that like it's really exciting to me. And I worked as a doctor for like 10 years in America after residency before I went to Gabon. I didn't see that kind of thing happen here, but it happens there. So it's really exciting. Go ahead. So when you drive up to the parking area, this is what you see, and you walk in, and you walk in front of internal medicine. I'm a doctor that does both internal medicine and pediatrics, and so I spend quite a lot of time in internal medicine. And my other things that I do at the hospital, I do some pediatrics. I am the medical director of the hospital. For medicine, I take care of a lot of people with HIV and tuberculosis. with some of the directing of the lab kind of things. So go ahead. For the outpatient area, this is the place where the patients will meet with the chaplains in the morning, and you can kind of see here how we have it blocked off to have it be socially distant for meeting with the chaplains in the morning. Go ahead. So for the inpatient part of medicine, we see all different kinds of problems, so heart disease and diabetes and things like that. But what we see the most of is tuberculosis. So before COVID, tuberculosis was the infectious disease that killed the most people every year. And so the ladies in this picture all have either tuberculosis or they're the caregivers of someone with tuberculosis. And so, yeah, 1.6 million people every year is more than HIV and malaria combined. Go ahead. In pediatrics, the main thing that we take care of is malaria. And so malaria kills one child every minute of every day. And they're mostly there where we are in sub-Saharan Africa. So this little boy, his name is Noah, which is the French version of Noah. And when he came to the hospital, he'd been unconscious for several days because the malaria had attacked his brain. And he woke up. And I can't explain it. It's God. God is good. And so it's, yeah, God is good. Go ahead. So because we do a lot of the maternity care for the region, and we do lots of C-sections, we also see a lot of premature babies. So the baby that's closest to us, her name is Merveille, which means marvel in French. And she was about 1.5 pounds. And so now she is about 17 months old. And she's doing well. So you can see that we have some things there to help her breathe. She has a special IV in her belly button. And so a lot of babies, even here in America, that are born that small, don't always make it. And so again, she is a marvel. And so she also didn't catch HIV from her mom. And so again, God is good. Go ahead. So for HIV care, one thing that, so first of all, we have enrolled more than 1,000 people in our HIV program since we started. One thing that's really interesting is that HIV in Africa tends to be a women's disease. And about 70% of our patients are female. So doctors had to do an actual study to show something that is kind of a no-brainer to most people, but they did this study to show that children who are born to women with HIV have a better chance of making it to age 5 if their mothers are on treatment and are doing well than kids whose moms aren't on treatment. And so this little guy, he didn't get HIV from his mom, and we're really glad about that. But you can see that he's not doing quite well. His hair isn't nice and shiny. He has kind of a dull, blank stare. His clothes aren't clean, and so all this is because his mom had stopped taking her treatment. She wasn't doing well at all. And so now his mom is back on treatment and both doing much better. And so that's the kind of thing that we can see with our HIV clinic. Go ahead. So last year COVID came, and so we had to pivot and start to take care of COVID. So we don't have running water in all the patient rooms, and some of the, you saw that it's a big hospital, there's lots of outdoor kind of areas. So our solution for this was to get the bucket with the spigot to do hand washing. We check people's temperatures when they come in with the thermal flash. Go ahead. And so one of the things we had to do is to teach the nursing staff who would be in the COVID unit how to use the personal protective equipment. And so this is equipment that we had that was left over from a gift from Samaritan's Purse from 2015 when there was the possibility that Ebola might come. And what we did was to watch videos about how to put on the equipment and take it off. And then when the nurses, we went one at a time, but when the nurse had the equipment on, I pretended to cough on them and speckled them with green paint. And then they had to get the equipment off without getting any green paint on themselves. And so only one of them, the guy who's on the right, was able to get the equipment off without getting any green paint on himself at all. And everybody else got some green paint on themselves, so on their clothes, in their hair. But everybody learned how easy it was and learned from the mistakes that the others had made. And so when COVID actually did come, none of the nurses working in the COVID unit got COVID. So there was a number of other people, doctors, nurses, in other parts of the hospital that got it, but none of these nurses did. I'm so proud of them. And the other thing that we did was we made a decontamination area that when the nurses came into work, they would change out of their clothes from home, change into scrubs from the hospital, go through the decontamination area into work, and then at the end of their shift, they would change out of the personal protective equipment and the scrubs from the hospital. And some of the equipment would burn, some of it goes in bleach water. They walk through the decontamination, take a shower in the middle chamber, and then put on their clothes from home again and leave. And that way they are completely decontaminated before they leave for the day. Go ahead. So one of the big things that we do at Bungalow is that we train Christian medical professionals who are going to stay in Africa. And we train general surgeons, eye surgeons, nurses, nurse midwives, and nurse anesthetists. And so in this picture, this is Daniela, and this was back when she was a nursing student, and now she finished the nursing school and the nurse midwife program, and she's a really good midwife. So lack of healthcare professionals is sometimes a really big problem for places in Africa. Go ahead. So this is Jeff teaching the nurse anesthesia students, and Wendy teaching the eye surgeons. Go ahead. So the Pan-African Academy of Christian Surgeons is it's a program that started at Bungalow, and it teaches African doctors to be surgeons. And in a lot of countries in Africa, there just aren't surgeons, and so people can die of problems like need for a hernia or for a C-section. So an example, just kind of as an example, one of the people that graduated from Bungalow recently went back to Burundi, where he's from, and to the best of our knowledge, he is the 14th Burundian surgeon from Burundi, which is a country of 10 million people. And yeah, you can understand why it would be so easy to need surgery there and just not have someone be able to do it. So the surgeons in this picture are from Angola. There's two from the Democratic Republic of Congo, one from Madagascar, and the guy in the middle is the first one that did the program at Bungalow from Gabon, and he's now our assistant medical director. Go ahead. So the program started at Bungalow, but it's now in all those blue countries, And there's 17 training programs. It's now no longer just general surgery, but there's now programs in orthopedics and head and neck surgery. And so the graduates are in 21 countries and with 117 graduates. And so all those people are staying in Africa and there's a discipleship part of the course, so there's Christians. And the graduates are in all those orange countries. And so some of those orange countries are places that it's very difficult for someone like me to go long term. That there's problems with the politics and with the stability of the country and other things. And so to have someone who's from there that can always stay there is just a real blessing. Go ahead. So just another chapter in the story that's not all the medical chapter is I teach Sunday school. Go ahead. And usually in Sunday school, we have 150 to 180 children per week. So we split up into 3 classes. And so one class is the preschoolers, so like preschool and maybe kindergarten. One class is this class that, in the previous picture, is the 1st and 2nd grade, maybe 3rd grade, and then the class that I'm usually with is like the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. So that's the like 1st and 2nd graders. There's sometimes just in that class there's about 100 kids. They are doing coloring sheet there, and they just love their coloring sheets. And then in the next picture, that's the preschool class is getting a Operation Christmas Child gift. So if you wonder if those gifts actually get to us, yes, they do. And then that's the other picture is one of the perks of having Sunday school near a hospital is using patient gowns and rolled bandages and receiving blankets for our skits. So at the beginning, I said that I wanted to talk about some unfinished stories. And so now you have some background about the hospital and what's going on and some of the setting of the story. So one of the unfinished stories is Mamadou. And Mamadou is the tall guy that's in the dark shirt. And he has extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. So I talked about that tuberculosis is the most, the infectious disease that kills the most people in the world before COVID. And for regular tuberculosis, normally it takes 6 months of medicine to kill it. So there's regular tuberculosis, there's multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, and then there's what Mamadou has, which is extensively drug resistant tuberculosis. So for extensively drug resistant tuberculosis, it takes at least 18 months of treatment, and some people, even after the 18 months of medicine, they still might not be cured. And these are medicines that have lots of side effects. So Mamadou, he went through the first 6 months with us, and he wasn't cured, and that's when we found out that it was extensively drug-resistant tuberculosis. So he was in the hospital with us for 2 months the first time around. And this picture, there's a cake in the picture because he was 4 months with us in the hospital this time because with the medicines and all their side effects. And so we're celebrating that he's getting out. And so he's now more than a year into the treatment, and we don't know. Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? This part of the story, it's not finished. The other part that's not finished for Mamadou is that he is Muslim. And so he is from up in Northwest Africa. And so he's been with us in the hospital for 2 months the first time, 4 months the second time. He comes in every month for his follow-up and his medicine. We've been praying. God, give him dreams and visions. We talk to him. It's not finished. And so, go to the next picture. I'm sure of this, that you began a good work and you will bring it to completion. So we're praying that that it comes to completion, that Mamadou decides to follow Jesus, that God gives him dreams and visions, and that this whole long thing wasn't just for nothing. Go ahead. So, another unfinished story, Christine. So Christine came to Bungalow with her husband Jean-Claude. Jean-Claude came to be part of the surgical residency program. And Christine is a general doctor. They're both from the northeast corner of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So it's a very remote, difficult area. And as a generalist doctor, a lot of generalist doctors in Africa have just a few months of training after medical school. So it's not like a family physician or a pediatrician or an internal medicine doctor in America. So those doctors in America have at least 3 years of training after medical school. They learn their specialty. So a generalist doctor like Christine only has a few months. But while she was at Bungalow, she worked with me and she picked a lot of things up. So in 2013, I went to visit Jean-Claude and Christine in Congo, which is where this picture was. And so there had been some things going on. There had been a case of Ebola not too far away from them. There was some kind of terrible epidemic there where Christine had hospitalized 120 children at once by herself, basically. And so I thought, okay, it's Congo. They speak French there. I'll be really helpful. And so off I went. And then when I got there, I realized it's Congo, but they don't really speak French there. They speak Swahili, Lingala, and Kibutu. And Christine could just go back and forth between all those languages, and then French and some English with me. And she could just know that, okay, because of the village, or because of the person's name, or because, I'm not even sure which language to address them in. And not only that, but when she talked to the patient, and she would say, okay, this is your problem, this is what you need to do, the patient would say, oh, okay, I'll do it. And if I had said the same thing, it would have been, okay. And it just wouldn't have been the same thing, even if I had learned some of those languages. And so I could see that Christine had learned and picked up the things from me at Bungalow, and she was using them there where she was in Congo. And so I realized, oh, we need to teach generalist doctors like Christine in the same way that we're training surgeons and the other people at Bungalow. And so, next slide. Finally, this year, we are going to start the training program for medical doctors at Bungalow. And we're going to start with Bintu, who is from Cameroon. So finally when I get back, it's been a few years in the making, but I'm really excited because it's a really important thing, and doctors like Christine and Bintu can go back to where they're from, and they understand the languages and the culture, and so it will be a much better thing to train them. Go to the next slide. Our hope is that as your faith continues to grow, our sphere of activity among you will greatly expand so that we can reach the gospel in the regions beyond you. So Christine and Bintu can go to regions beyond where we are there at Bungalow. And so that's what I'm really excited about when I get back. So go ahead. So there's some things that you can pray about. So one thing is pray for some of these unfinished stories. There's a whole lot more that there's all kinds of stories that happen there at Bungalow. But you can pray for people like Bintu, who's going to start the program. Pray for Mamadou. You can pray for this program to train primary care doctors. For Wayne and I in particular, as we're starting. Pray for a steady supply of affordable medicines for us, because that's been an issue that it's sometimes difficult to get the medicines that we need. And pray for the hospital while I'm gone. I'll be going back either August 3rd or 4th. The airline keeps changing my ticket, but that's coming up really fast in just a couple weeks now. And next slide. Oh, yes, what else can you do? So, you could get the prayer card. It looks like this. It's back there by the door. And you could put it on your fridge, put it in your bathroom, like any place that you can remember to pray. You can sign up for the prayer letter. The sign-up sheet is right back there by the door as well. You could give to the Great Commission Fund or to an international worker or a project you love. So, international worker could be me, there's other international workers. A project you love could be something like the HIV fund or the benevolent fund at the hospital, that's that kind of thing. I mean by a project that you love. And then you could consider, is God calling you to do missions, to go short-term, to go long-term? But those are some other things that you can do. So, so last slide. It's definitely not the end of this unfinished story. So thank you.